Well, for many years now, I've been a student of negotiation and conflict resolution. So I know something about how negotiation can be used to resolve conflicts. In terms of my own theories of negotiation, I believe negotiation requires the management of three tensions. And I use the word management advisedly because I don't think any of these tensions can be made to disappear. The first tension has to do with the substance of negotiation. And it's the tension between opportunities to expand the pie and create value, on the one hand, and the inevitable necessity of having to divide it up into slices. The most common mistake people make in negotiation is they have a zero-sum mindset. They think the only issue is who's getting what size slice. And they fail to realize that there are also opportunities through negotiation to create value, to expand the pie. Why is there a tension? The reason there's a tension is because to create value, it's very important that you really understand each other's interests, your long-term goals, as well as your resources, what you might have to trade. The difficulty is people are often very fearful about sharing this information because they're afraid they'll get exploited in the distributive aspect of bargaining. So part of negotiation training, and much of the teaching I do here at Harvard really is to help people learn how to manage that tension. The second tension is one that really relates to interpersonal relations, and that is the tension between empathy and assertiveness. By empathy, what I mean is the ability in a non-judgmental way to describe your understanding of the other person's needs, interests, concerns. By assertiveness, I mean the capacity in a persuasive way to articulate your own needs and interests and concerns. Some people, for example, some of my law students, are terrific at assertion. They're very good in making arguments, but they're lousy listeners. Indeed, when they're listening to someone, it's always yes, but kind of listening where they're composing in their own mind what their rebuttal's going to be. On the other hand, some people are terrific at putting themselves in the other person's shoes. Their problem, however, sometimes can be to fall into accommodation mode, and that once they really understand the other side's perspective, they may lose the ability to stand up and defend what their own interests are. So when I call this managing a tension, what I really mean is that people have to learn how to do both well. And with students of negotiation, what we often do as negotiation coaches is help them expand their repertoire so they can do both. The third tension, and this is the last one, is what I call the tension between principals and agents. Most complicated negotiations involve an agent negotiating on behalf of an enterprise, a union, a government, and the interests of the agent rarely perfectly align with that of the principal. So the challenge here is managing this tension so that you have an effective working relationship. Well, one of the things I would like to know more about relates to my last book, which was called Bargaining with the Devil: When to Negotiate, When to Fight. That book was not so much about how to negotiate, but it was about how to think through whether you should negotiate or resist. Now, this kind of issue comes up in lots of contexts. In international relations, for example, today, should we be negotiating with the Taliban? How and whether should we be negotiating with the North Koreans or the Iranians? How about the pirates off Somalia? Our leaders face all the time the question of whether to negotiate. The issue can also, though, come up in business contexts because sometimes there are very heated disputes between business enterprises where they demonize each other, and where one or both may just want to fight it out in court, irrespective of how much time and expense it takes. Sadly, the question of whether to bargain with the devil can also arise in families. By devil, I don't believe in the devil literally, but I mean someone you don't trust, someone who you think is out to hurt you. And by bargain, I mean try to resolve the conflict through negotiation rather than through resistance or simple avoidance. Now, what I'd like to learn, and it's a challenging thing to learn, is how can we help people demonize each other? A terrific problem in the world is that we often have very distorted views of the underlying interests and concerns of our adversary. It's not in my book, Bargaining with the Devil, that I think one should always negotiate. That's foolish. There are times when if you really carefully go through the costs and benefits, you discover you shouldn't negotiate. But what I'm really intrigued by is by what process under circumstances where people think they shouldn't negotiate, can you help them create a better relationship and help them, in fact, see one another, not through eyes where there's so much demonization. My 5-second advice is think hard about your own underlying long-term interests and those of the other side, first, and second, listen well.